Hello, mate.
Hi, how's it going?
I am really well. Thank you so much for doing this.
No worries. It's
I'm
my
very
pleasure.
surprised to see how sunny it is through your window, given where you are.
It's actually grey and cloudy, to be honest. We're getting into the dark nights, so it's yeah. I mean, we're going to do the reverse. You're going to get your lovely summer, and we're going to get our shitty European winter. So great fun. Hmm?
In Sheffield?
No, I'm in a little village called Hemsworth, which is close to Leeds, between Sheffield and Leeds, like 30 minutes between.
I mean, I knew it was that way.
Yeah. The joys of living up north again. It's been interesting. Yeah.
I miss the UK so much.
It misses you. I can't even remember. I mean, I was trying to think back since the last time I saw you, and it must have been Manchester when we both lived in
We didn't
Manchester.
see each other when we both lived in Sydney.
No, exactly. I don't know how that didn't happen. But
I was
we need to make
in a relationship, and I didn't. No,
you were off scene.
I was in a relationship, and I didn't really see gay men outside of my relationship. So
fair enough. I think that could be a safety thing, to be fair. But yeah, no, so. I mean, I left Manchester in 2010. I was there since 2006, which was when I went for drama school. So it's been a long time. Yeah,
I remember when you moved there for drama school.
Yeah, and it went mental after that. That's my acting journey is it's a bit of a crazy one. So I've got a lot to talk about. So it's
good. Well, that's what we're here to talk about, your acting journey, because obviously at the moment, after however many years of a hiatus, it seems to be. You hear that
kicking off.
really loud car outside? I was like,
no, I couldn't hear it.
Oh, well, there you go. I just interrupted a podcast because I thought the car outside was too loud. Yeah, it seems to be really picking up at the moment from everything that you're posting, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it did. It kind of went crazy over the last 4 years, and then it's just tapered off again. And I'm kind of in that position where I'm dying to do something. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, do you want? I can just start talking through the journey, really.
Let's start at the beginning. So
yeah,
I guess the first thing I really love to ask on this is why acting? Like, what's got you here?
Yeah, I mean, it started in school, really. I remember doing, I was in primary school and we did this play called Escape from Planet R. And it was about racism and inclusion and diversity. It was about this green alien kid who was in a school with all the other children, and they kind of bullied her for being green. And then anyway, this went on, and it was my first ever role. I played the Lord High Leader of the aliens. And I loved it. I just loved being on stage. It was something that I'd never done before. And that was in primary school, then went to high school. And I was very lucky that my form tutor who looked after me through school was my media tutor and my drama tutor. So we just got on really well. And I think I learned a lot from him. And then it started doing the annual school play. We started off with Bugsy Malone. I had a little tiny speaking part in that. And then we did Joseph. And then it was kind of from then that I really realized I wanted to act, and it's something I tried to pursue as much as possible, and then ended up I gave it up for a year, really. Started studying media studies and other A-levels, and then I thought, no, this is not what I want to do. I want to be an actor. This is my dream, my passion. So studied the BTEC National Diploma in Performing Arts at college, and I don't know how to say this without sounding arrogant. I always got the lead role. I was always kind of the one who got the main part, or was considered the one who was kind of the one who was doing well. And through the 2-year course of BTEC, had a great journey. Did a lot of incredible plays, and it was basically from there. My acting tutor at college, her best friend was producing a show in Leeds, and it was a professional theatre tour. It was a show called 4 Nights in Knaresborough by Paul Webb. And if you haven't read it, please do. It's hilarious. It's basically a medieval comedy. Kind of imagine Medieval versus American Pie. So it's got that kind of crude sense of humor. And they were struggling to cast this part. And the part was one of the 4 male leads, one of the Knights of Knaresborough. And he was the younger one, the cocky one. And I got an audition for it, and they'd auditioned a lot of professional actors, graduates, and working actors, and I got the role straight away. And it was a bit of a kind of like one of those aha moments. It's like, oh wow, I've kind of done my first show. So we did a theatre tour of that. which was incredible. I got to work with, I was 16 at the time, I think, because it was when I was in college. And we did 2 tours. We did one in Knaresborough. We did it actually where the play was set. And then we did one afterwards, which was in Leeds. And I learned a lot from that because I was working with a professional director, professional actors. I was still in college, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but it worked. It kind of came from there. And then from there, I got signed with my first agent. So I was still at college at the time. I was working with an agency in Manchester and got put forward for a few auditions. Didn't really get anything TV or film, but I got cast. I landed a role in a TAE, Theatre and Education. And this was after I graduated from college. That my plan was to basically, as I had the agent, I thought, right, I don't need to do drama school. I can just carry on as it is. Did this 4-month TAE tour, which again, learned loads, kind of got me put in front of audiences, which was all 4, 5, 6-year-olds, which I don't know if you've done TAE before, but that can be challenging and terrifying at the same time. Yeah, it's funny because it's looked down on a lot by professional actors. They don't want to do it because they don't think it's real acting, but I probably gained more experience and life experience in that tour than I did with anything else. I mean, there was me and a girl. It was a 2 cast. You had a van with all the costume and equipment in the back, all the set, and you drove and did 2 shows a day up and down the country. So I just passed my driving test. I was driving all the way up and down the country. So that, I think that's one of the reasons I'm actually a really good driver now as well, because I kind of had to learn to do this van. So did this tour, and then my agent decided to close the business, basically. She wanted to focus purely on musical theatre and cut the acting side. So my options were, do I look for another agent or do I go to drama school, which was kind of the natural route? And I auditioned for LIPA in Liverpool, Manchester Performing Arts School, one in London, and then another one in Manchester called the Arden School of Theatre. And I didn't get into any of them ones, but I got into the Arden, which is obviously when I moved to Manchester and met you. And I actually have a tattoo that says, don't live without regrets. But I always wonder what would have happened if I'd just gone with another agent or tried to pursue it from the outside, because unfortunately the school didn't really live up to the expectations or the promises that they made. They said they were going to be an accredited drama school within a year. Never happened. They cut to the programs that were quite integral to the course itself. They just moved into this beautiful new building, and it just didn't really feel right. I remember being in a class with a few of the guys, and that we were talking about what potential professions you can go into as an actor, and someone brought up TAE, Theatre and Education. And the backlash, everyone was like, I'd never do that. I'd never do that. No, it's not real acting. And I was sat there like, I've just done a 3-month tour of this. It paid my bills. It was my second professional role. And I just didn't feel on the same par with these kind of, that sounds really bad. No, not that it was not on the same par, but because I'd done it already, I kind of felt a little bit more experienced, but not in an arrogant way. But I think the problem with me with drama school was it opened me up to the gay scene and partying, which I think many people go down that route. And I got very, very swept up in that. My first year at drama school, I was doing pretty well, but I did find that I was partying a bit too much. Sure. I fell into the idea that
that's not just necessarily a gay thing for partying.
No.
It's just like an age thing, right? I mean, you're what, 18, 19 years old?
Yeah.
And I mean, having lived in Australia and lived in the UK, in Manchester, it's like the culture here versus there around education is very different. Like you go to do education because it's kind of expected that that's what you do when you reach that age, and you definitely go and you live in a different city than where you are, because that's that experience, like America, that's the experience of going away. So I kind of feel like, that's something that everybody was probably doing at that kind of age as well.
Oh, right? Yeah. 100%. I don't think I was trying to like specify that this is what gay people do.
No. I know.
Yeah, it was just the path that I went down, really, and kind of how it worked. And because I wasn't really happy on the course, I didn't feel like it was the right thing for me. I kind of had this flip side of, do I continue with this course or do I quit and become a dancer? That was my sudden dream at the time. And yeah, exactly, those crazy dreams. And then in my second year, I decided to quit, basically. I wanted to become a dancer. So I went in one day, quit. And the next day they did auditions for Disneyland Paris in Manchester. And my friend went, look, you want to be a dancer? Come along to the audition and see how you do. So I went along with like 25 other people who were, because I'd had a year out, I was slightly older than most as well, but it was all girls with little bows in their hair. They'd had little rosy cheeks, trying to look like Disney princesses. And I ended up landing a contract. I landed a 6-month contract with Euro Disney and moved out 2 months later there, which was an incredible experience. I'd never been to Disneyland as a kid, so this was kind of eye-opening for me. I remember the first time I saw Pluto, I was just like absolutely starstruck and mind blown. And that was, in terms of the work, I loved it. The dancing, the performing, the character performing was fantastic. But every other element of it, I wasn't really happy with. So it was very similar to America. You lived in these halls of residence that had 2 beds in one room. Right. And me and the guy that I lived with, we just didn't like each other. He wanted to sit up talking with the group in the bedroom up until like 2 a.m. And I was like, mate, I've got a dance rehearsal at 7 a.m. I want to go to bed. And we just clashed a lot like that. So after 3 months, I ended up quitting again, the run thing. And went back to Manchester, and that was it, really. I put a massive hiatus on it. I don't know what it was that stopped me pursuing it. It was just, I'm very much a person who follows their gut instinct. If something feels right, I go with it. And at that time, it just didn't feel right to continue. I think I became a bit disillusioned because there's so many people out there who want to be an actor. There's so many people who out there want to be famous. And this was at the time where reality TV was starting to come in as well. And you could get famous for being nothing. I mean, for me, it's not about the fame. It's about being acknowledged and respected for your talent. Mm-hmm. So I don't mind reality TV if they're doing something talented. That's fine. Like I really appreciate that. But you were getting to the point where it was the Big Brother people. Love Island wasn't in at that point. And I think I just became a bit disillusioned with it. And because I'd worked as an actor before and kind of struggled for money, I thought, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. So that was it. I basically gave up and fell into online retail. I've been doing that for 13 years now.
How old were you at that point when you decided to? Are we using the word give up? Or?
Yeah, I did effectively. The dream was always there. I always wanted to do it, but I didn't pursue anything. And a reason for that was I fell in with a group of friends who were very judgmental of it and used to really take the piss out of me for it. So if there was any kind of talent like singing or acting, if I mentioned something about it or gave critique or praised them, they'd take the piss out of me for it, like, oh, well, yeah, because you're a trained singer or actor. And it became this really toxic environment. I mean, this is a separate conversation to everything that's going on. But I think
it's a conversation that I want to get into.
Okay, cool.
This is perfect. Like for me, like the whole part of the whole point of this podcast is for people to the people that are trying to make it as an actor to feel like they're not alone in these type of thoughts that they have. Like so many people go through, will go through a similar experience of feeling the guy that I had a conversation with last week literally said like he moved away from the area that he was living in because his friends that he was around were saying, you're never going to make it as an actor, how ridiculous. But rather than giving up, which in itself isn't a bad thing that that was the choice that you made, because you have to make the choices that are right for you and your life and your own mental health. But his way of dealing with that was, no, this is what I want to do. I'm going to move away from you, and I'm going to move to an area to be around people he moved to an area where he felt there were more successful people, rich people who strove for success. Yeah. So he wanted to surround himself with that type of person rather than listen to the naysayers. But I think it's a really important conversation to have around our own, the demons that we can have, that we go through on our own, and the mental health struggles, because people just think that you become an actor overnight and that it's really easy and that you don't suffer through this type of stuff. But fuck me, it's hard work. Yeah. So I 100% want to have that conversation with you.
We can do that. So yeah, I basically I fell into a group of friends who were the popular ones. They were the fashion people. They were the cool gay kind of crowd that was in Manchester.
This was in Manchester, right? I know these guys.
You probably know a few of them. I'm not going to name names because I cut to a few years down the line. I cut all of them out of my life because I realized just how toxic it was. But yeah, I admit in my mental health did decline massively, and I was around people that didn't support me or kind of encourage what I wanted to do or encourage any of the things that I liked or enjoyed. And I remember we all lived together at this point, and we were watching X Factor, and a girl sang, and I said, "Oh yeah, she was good, but she was a little bit out of tune." And they ripped the shit at me like, "Oh yeah, because you're a professional singer." I was like, "Well, no, I'm not actually, but I'm allowed to have kind of a comment." And it was just that kind of environment where people just knock each other down constantly.
Right.
And that really obliterated my confidence, completely obliterated it. And I became very much a shell of the person that I was. And at that point, my life was very much surrounded by partying, narcotics, drinking. And that became my thing. It became who I was. I was the funny one when he was on a night out. I was the entertaining one on the night out. So I kind of I never thought of this. I kind of swapped it for a more unrealistic performance because it was me as this drunk, high, gay guy who was, I was a good dancer. I'd be on the podiums. I was funny. I was entertaining. And I think that's who I became. And that's who I thought I had to be at that point. And you mentioned mental health. It was so damaging, so damaging. And I remember when I first moved to Manchester and I used to see people on the gay scene where they were getting really, really heavily into it and completely swallowed up. And I remember thinking, that's never going to be me. And it did. I totally became that person. And on the flip side of that, I don't really regret any of it because I had an incredible life. I worked in fashion. I was going to London Fashion Week. I was at these like A-list parties, hanging out with the popular crowd. And it was great. It was really good fun. But in terms of the damage that it did on my mental health, wasn't good. And yeah, like I said, it got to the point where I moved around quite a lot. I moved from Manchester to Paris for Disneyland, back to Manchester, then to Bristol to set up a company with a couple of friends. And that's where everything went really tits up with mental health. And I ended up moving to London and then continued my work as working in online fashion retail. And I was in London for 2 years, and the problems I was having in terms of partying and not looking after myself just got a bit too much. And at this point, I was just living day to day. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who I wanted to be. That confidence in myself had gone. And one of my biggest issues I look back on is I have major body dysmorphia. When I was growing up, I was quite a big kid, and then I lost loads of weight at Manchester and London through partying, basically. But in my head, I was still fat, and I was always this fat kid that was always the friend. People didn't want to have a relationship with him. I was always the cute one, the funny one, the entertaining one, but the friend zone one. And that lived with me for so long. And I've just seen some pictures recently from me from London, and I am stick thin, but in my head, I was still overweight. And that's kind of the mental health damage that happened to me, really. So it took a long time to get that back. It took a really, really long time. And then I left.
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, from an acting perspective, just touching on the body dysmorphia stuff, did that impact you and what you thought you were capable of from acting?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Because we work in an industry where looks is key. It's getting better, but you are either cast as the beautiful one or probably the not so beautiful one. I remember actually when I quit drama school, I went for drinks with them when they graduated, and I spoke to the acting teacher, and he said it's a shame. He said something along the lines of, "It's a shame that you quit." I was like, "Oh, okay." And he went, "Yeah, you're a good-looking guy. You could have done well." And I kind of sat there thinking, "Thanks, but that's not what I wanted to hear. Tell me I'm a good actor, or tell me you could be successful through that, not because of my looks." It was a compliment, obviously, but it just showed a little bit of what it was like at the time.
Yeah. Oh man, I got the complete opposite. Like, I'm not sure if I've talked about this on this podcast before, but one of the reasons why I took a hiatus from acting is because I did Bachelor of Performing Arts at Salford and
Right.
quit after like 3 or 4 months into year two because I just didn't really like it. But I also, I probably do have body dysmorphia and have suffered from that in a way most of my life. I mean, being a gay man and knowing what gay men want, but then seeing stuff on TV. But I had a conversation with a guy who was a writer and sometime casting director for Hollyoaks. And I had asked him for some advice on what I needed to do to make it as an actor. And he essentially said, you'll never make it as an actor, you're too big. You might be able to be an extra. You could, you make good money being an extra as a cop or as a bouncer, but you'll never be a leading man or like a working actor because you're too big.
Yeah.
And that's the type of attitude that people had back then, which is...
And the thing is, that sticks with you as well.
Oh my God, it's stuck with me for
just
so
dismiss
long.
that. Yeah.
No, that has stuck with me forever. And I think it took me a very long time to kind of like push that thinking out of my head, to not let that type of stuff affect me. But even recently, it happened again recently. Well, and I say recently, like 2018 or 2019, I finished doing a 1-year course with did you hear Screenwise here? No. If you didn't do any acting here, you probably don't really know about them. But anyway, I did a year course at Screenwise, but then went to do a Meisner course with a well-known place here, and I sat down with the owner director of the school, and he's like, your show was really good, you're a good actor, but you need to lose a couple of kilos.
Ooh.
How are you still saying this in like 2019? Or 18. At the time, I just thought, well, you're a bit of a dick. And that meant that I wasn't going to move forward with his school. And I didn't let that affect me in the same way as what I let it affect me 15 years ago. But yeah, it's an interesting, the whole...
It is. There's a massive focus on women in the industry. I think there's a bigger impact there because when you get to a certain age as a female actress, it's a lot harder to get good roles. You get cast as the elderly or something like that, and we see a lot more criticism of actresses in terms of how they look and everything. And I always find it quite funny when you watch films from maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, like Hollywood movies, where these lead males are cast with these absolutely extraordinarily beautiful women, and you kind of think this just doesn't seem realistic, which is quite a bad place to look at, really, because it's not how it should be. But it showed that male actors could be cast based on talent more than women could be, I would say. So that's kind of something that I picked up from.
I think it's starting to change a little bit now, really, because I think a lot of the good roles now, like the meaty, gritty good roles, are for that age bracket of like 35 to 60-ish.
Yeah.
Like proper Oscar-worthy roles are now for that kind of age bracket. Obviously, if you want to be in a Marvel film, you've got to be fucking drop dead gorgeous and have an amazing body and all of that kind of stuff, and you'll get paid loads of money, but you're never going to win a fucking Oscar for playing a Marvel character.
No, true. Which is kind of a shame, really. I mean, I read an article a couple of weeks ago in terms of horror movies never really do very well at the Oscars, and you can see some absolutely incredible performances. Toni Collette in Hereditary, that scene at the dinner table with her son is Oscar-worthy acting. Yeah. But I don't even think she got nominated for anything like that. And horror films are another industry that just, they don't really get taken as serious. And actually, it's funny. I really want to be in a horror film. I've grown up obsessed with horror movies, and it's just something. It's one of my tick boxes I want to do.
Well, then I might have to get an idea of you for a scene, because I have an audition for a horror film in 2 weeks, and I need a horror film, like 1 to 2 minute monologue for it. So I might think of something. I might have.
I actually have a good one. Have you watched Midnight Mass on Netflix?
I have not, no.
So it's Mike Flanagan's new one. He did The Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting of Bly Manor. And there's this scene with the two leads. It's Kate Siegel and Zach Blifford. And they do these monologues. And it's one I'm working on at the moment because I haven't got any auditions coming up. I thought I'll work on a monologue. And it's this incredible scene where you've got two people who've kind of been shunned from society because of their choices or their mistakes or the way they did things. Whereas one of them you've got is a born-again Christian, one of them is an atheist. And they talk about what happens after death. And it's incredible, but the performances are fantastic. I mean, Kate Siegel she's beautiful, but an incredible actress as well. And I'm working on the character Riley. It's because he's the atheist. It's talking about what happens when you die. So I'll send you the link, actually.
Yeah, do. I'll have a look at it. And I'll watch it after this.
Watch it. If you've seen anything by Mike Flanagan, he's incredible. He's a fantastic director. I
want to take a step back for a second, because obviously you had like an interesting journey in that you started out wanting to be an actor and then you've taken a hiatus for however many years. And we'll get into, I guess, what has got you back into the industry in a minute. But I'm curious to know, when you first started out, when you got your age and you did the TIA, is that the acronym?
TIA.
TIE?
No, TIE, Theatre and Education.
TIE. So when you decide I want to be an actor, what at that moment in time as young Patrick, what was your idea of making it? What did you want to be?
Oh, I mean, at that time I wanted to be in Hollywood movies. I think that was the drive to do it. It was to be part of this incredible project that is then shown worldwide. And it wasn't, like I said earlier, it wasn't about I want to be famous. It was about I want to be successful in what I do. And at the time, I suppose, icon and someone I looked up to was Johnny Depp. Because as an actor, you can't fault him. Absolutely fantastic performance. But at that time, he wasn't in the papers every day. He wasn't in gossip rags. He wasn't on the front cover of Heat magazine. And that's, in my books, what I looked at as a successful actor. That was how I wanted to be, really. Okay. And that was before I'd ever been on a film set or a TV set. And then it very drastically changed into theatre, because I think they're two completely different mediums, that goes without saying. But there's just an aspect of theatre where you build this character, you work on this script, and then you do it live. And there's nothing beats doing that. No. And especially because my first ever professional acting job was this theatre play, and it was a comedy, and it was good, it was really well produced. And that kind of gave me a bit of a different slant. And it was just after that I actually had a walk-on role in Emmerdale. And it was non-spoken. I was just in the background of a police scene, but talking to a police officer. And I must admit, I was bored. We filmed it like 15, 16 times. And I think, again, I was 17 years old. And I was bored, the waiting around, the sitting around, not doing anything, the repetition of it all. And it made me realize, these are two completely different things. And you might end up with a finished product that you can see yourself, as in you can go to the movies, you can watch it on TV. But the craft and the process of it, I just didn't enjoy as much. And I think that's purely because it's broken into these little elements. And I think in theatre, you've got this journey where you start from the beginning and you end at the end. And there's everything that goes on between. And that not only it creates the character, creates these situations, but it creates the actions, it creates the emotions. And that's what I really loved about theatre. And that was kind of how I got back into acting. I know you said we'll get to that at some point, but it's what made me realize what I did love doing, because there's just this aspect of working on this one person's character, their journey, and taking it on, but then doing it live in front of an audience. I think there's nothing really beats that. So my vision of what is a successful actor back then has probably changed massively to now.
So now we're back into acting, and you're trying to make it again. What is your idea of making it now?
Making it now, I think, is someone who is versatile, can flip between the stage and the screen. And I think, I think someone who can do both, and do it do it not only successfully but believably, and with kind of with an authenticity about it. I mean, you sometimes see people, actors or actresses in theatre shows, and you know they're there just to bring in the audience, but then you also get these people who are just so good on stage. I mean, the UK, you know, is full of incredible actors and actresses. There's just so many. And it's seeing that flip between the screen and the stage, I think, for me is more of a successful thing. It's not even about the awards. I think that is seen as the pinnacle of being a successful actor. It's when you win your Oscar, when you win your BAFTA, those things. But for me, it's more about giving someone that moment that you take from a theatre or from a film. And like for me, that was talking about the show Midnight Mass. The show is phenomenal, but those monologues were the bits for me because it was just beautiful. It was moving. It was really simplistic, and it engaged me. And I think as actors, we struggle sometimes when we're watching things because we know what's going on. We know what's going on in the background. We know what's going on in the foreground. We know what the cameraman's doing. So it kind of breaks you out of it a little bit. And I think if an actor can draw you into their performance and make it realistic, that's a successful actor to me.
Yeah. Okay. To be working in both theatre and film and being the lead.
Yeah, I think, that would be it for me. But there's, I mean, in terms of making it as an actor, if you do one job, you're an actor. If you do a 3-month theatre tour, but then you're out of work for 6 months, you're an actor.
Yeah.
And that is something I'm seeing a lot of recently, where people make this term of, oh, you've made it, oh, you're a working actor. If you do any paid work as an actor, you are an actor. And I think that is something that people on the outside of the industry don't really consider. No. So you've got to, I mean, look, we're both actors. We understand that you might not be working in acting for 6 months, for a year. That's the nature of the business.
But I think also there's still a lot of people that are starting out, or a lot of people that may be starting out, that also feel that way. That, oh, I've only done a couple of short films, so, you know, I want to be an actor. So there's that. I think a lot of people feel uncomfortable saying they're an actor if they're not only making income from acting.
Yeah, I think that's a completely fair point, and that's very much a state of mind you're in. And I think
100%.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where you've just got to take it and own it and be willing to fight for that. I mean, if you got paid to do a walk-on role, you didn't even have a line, but you were a paid actor, you're an actor. That's just the way you've got to do it. And I think you've got to try and not be disillusioned by the lack of work or the breaks in work, because that's just the nature of the business. It was the same before COVID, it's the same after COVID. Yeah. And obviously the industry has changed a lot in terms of auditioning. That's one thing. I want to go to a face-to-face audition. I miss doing that. I really miss doing it.
I have to admit that I love self-taping.
Right.
But then again, if I'm honest, I've never had the opportunity. Well, that's a lie. I've auditioned in person. Okay, see that now I'm doing it. I'm not a real actor. I've done in-person auditions for student film. And I think I did one in-person audition for an independent short film once. But I've never been in the room to audition for something that wasn't a TV scene.
Yeah.
With a casting agent.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's the beauty of self-tapes is you've got multiple takes. You can do it as many times as you want. And that's something I need to work on. I need to work on self-taping because I'm not great at preparing for a scene. I try to wing it and it works in my favor. I landed 3 TV shows over the last year from winging a self-tape. But I know that it's not going to get me everywhere I need to go. So what I want to do is use this downtime where I'm not working to do those auditions, to work on self-tape, to test different recordings. And that's why I printed out this monologue I mentioned about. Because I read a really good quote on Twitter the other day. It was saying, you might be out of work, you might not have an audition for a month, and you could think of it as, I've not had an audition for a month, or you could think of it as, that's a month of preparing for your next audition. Yeah. And I think that's a very Instagram positivity quote, but it's true. And if you look at it that way, it can really help you out.
Well, I'm going to make a couple of recommendations for you if you want to get better at self-taping. Although what I would say, with your comment of feeling like you might not prepare enough for self-tapes, I actually think winging it, not winging it, but I actually think not over-analyzing it is better for a self-tape. But then again, I think it's going to depend on the sort of person you are and the sort of actor you are. Like, different people respond better to different things. But I'll tell you why I kind of swing more in that camp now of like, don't worry about preparing too much. So I recently did a 21-day self-tape challenge. It's run by a London casting director called Manuel Puro. I highly recommend doing his 21-day self-tape challenge. You get sent a scene at 7 p.m. every night, and you have until 7 p.m. the following day to learn it, film it, upload it to the platform.
Right.
It is hands down, categorically, the best thing I have ever done to get myself out of my head and just trust the choices that I'm making. And I think that's a really important thing to think about here, because when we kind of like, we read about what you need to do in an audition, we hear about what casting directors want. It's always, we want to see bold choices. We want to see something different. And I think what we tend to do when we're perhaps not as successful as we might deem ourselves to be, is we second guess and try to give a performance that we think they want to see versus
what they want.
Well, it's not even, they don't even know what they want.
Yeah.
Like, a casting director ultimately has a brief from a production company or a director or whatever. The bold choice that we bring is what our uniqueness is in us to a character and to a part. Whereas though so many people will make similar choices because they were, this is just my take, but they're imagining, okay, this is what they want to see. I read this as an angry scene and it's an aggressive or it's an argument, so this is what they want to see. Whereas though, if you were to have an argument the way you would have an argument, and it's truthful and it comes across, then the casting director is going to be like, that is a bold choice. But really, you're just bringing your uniqueness, who you are, that character. And this self-tape challenge, because I work full time, I was in the process of moving house and I was doing this fucking 21-day self-tape challenge. I did not have time to overanalyze every single scene every day. I literally I got the scene at 7 o'clock each night. I'd read it, I'd put it down, wouldn't think about it again until about 4 o'clock the following day. And I gave myself 3 hours to learn it, film it, submit it. I think there was only twice that I didn't meet the 7 p.m. deadline, and that was the weekend that I moved house. But I'm a different actor I was a different actor at the end of that 3 weeks than what I was at the beginning, because I stopped getting in my head about, okay, I want to portray this in this line, and I want this beat, and I want this shit, and whatever. I just let myself be myself coming through in that role. And the fun part about that particular challenge is they don't, like, the casting director himself doesn't really give that much feedback on your work at all. He's more giving feedback on technicalities of your self-tape situation. But there was about, the people that actually went all the way to the end, there were about 15 actors that stuck with it for the whole 21 days. And each day, everybody logs in and they watch each person's interpretation of the scene. And everybody leaves a little comment of, that was really nice. I think you could have leaned into this a bit more, or blah, blah, blah. But you get so much feedback and stuff that it gives you the permission to be you and to allow yourself and allow who you are to come through in the role. So anyway, if you want to work on self-tapes,
I
highly recommend doing that, because you don't have to find scenes. You just get sent something every day and you just get to play.
Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm off work at the moment anyway, so I've actually got all the time in the world to do it.
Are you not working? I know you're not acting. Do you still have your professional job?
I do, yes. So I'm just off work at the moment. I'm off until the end of the month. So I've got a little bit of downtime to do
Nice.
that. But yeah, I am another one. I'm lucky that I've got a full-time job that pays the bills. It's a career that I've done for 13 years. So I work in online retail, fashion retail anyway. But they're also really respectful of if I do have an audition or if I have to go film it, they'll let me do it as long as I make up the work at another time. And I am so lucky to be in that position. A lot of actors are not. So it's kind of been beneficial. And that all happened really when I was in Brussels, because I moved there for the current job that I'm working in. And I kind of started getting my confidence back in terms of who I am. And there was a theatre company there called the American Theatre Company, and they were auditioning for the Crucible. And I was like, oh, okay, give it a whirl, see what happens. And I landed the role of John Proctor, which was just an absolute incredible role. I loved it.
Well, you did say that you always get the lead, so.
Well, the funny thing is, my drama school year, their graduating performance was the Crucible, and I went to see it. And I remember thinking when I got John Proctor, it was like a full circle moment. Like I wasn't in that one, but I got the lead role in the one that was like 10, 12 years later. And the good thing about Belgium is you don't have agents. It's just casting directors have a database of people. And if you're suitable for it, they'll come out to you. So that was really, really helpful. Did you have
to speak another language, or do they speak a lot of English there?
Everyone speaks English. Everyone speaks English over there. Yes, the local languages are French and Flemish. I did start learning French just as we went into lockdown, but then, I just couldn't do it. So yeah, I was with the American Theatre Company, and that was who I worked with. The bad side, and this is something I need to work on, self-tapes and accents. Accents I really struggle with. And luckily they allowed me to do John Proctor in English. So that was brilliant. That was a good one. And then, yeah, like I said, I started auditioning for casting tapes, for casting directors for TV and film. They film a lot of British and American stuff over there. And that was how I got these TV shows, the one that I've done recently. And that was actually the self-tapes. I completely winged it. I just improvised on the spot. And like, you know what, this time it worked. It actually got me the roles that I wanted. But then after moving back to the UK, it's been a lot harder. There's a lot more competition over here. In 6 months, I've had 3 self-taped auditions, which, to be fair, to go back to what I was saying earlier about the attitude of what that is, that's amazing. I had 3 auditions in 6 months. That's really good. You have to kind of look at it that way. But in terms of the whole, I mean, I'm still trying to make it. I still want to do so much more. There's so many things that I want to do, and I'm trying to find the best way to do that. And keep going and keep pursuing it, because there's moments where I go, you're never going to make it. You're never going to make it. I have that negative voice that happens.
Oh my God, I have that at least once a month of, what am I doing? What is the point? I haven't had an audition for months. And I've had like 5 auditions in the last week.
Yeah, really? Oh, cool.
Well, I've had 4 auditions and I've got 1 at the end of the month. The horror movie.
Oh yeah, cool.
I mean, they're all, apart from the horror movie, they're all TVCs, but that's still valid work.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you're auditioning, you're still getting out there. The casting director's still going to see who you are. So it's not, if you don't get the role, you haven't failed. No. You just didn't get it this time. And I think that's the kind of thing, as actors who are still trying to make it, you have to look at it all as experience. It's all gained experience. And what you can also do is use those self-tapes, keep them on file. That's the beauty of it. These are recorded. You can go back and look at them again and go, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, I could have done this here. And it's all a learning curve. So I think the change with COVID into these self-tapes is actually a really good idea. It's very beneficial for them.
I agree. Yeah. So what, thinking about the fact that you took a hiatus for such a long time, what made you decide to dip your toe back in the pond?
I think it was being in a city where I had a much calmer lifestyle. I wasn't party Patrick anymore. I had more time. I was more career focused, and I knew who I was. I developed a sense of who I was. And the beauty is those 10, 11 years that I wasn't acting, so much happened to me as a person that I felt like I had so much more life experience that I could bring to these roles
Yeah.
and bring to these characters. And that was kind of how it happened. And like I said, they were doing auditions for The Crucible, and I just thought, screw it. I love being on stage. I haven't performed in 10 plus years. Just go for it. And that was, I mean, like, again, I was lucky I got the lead role, but that gives you that boost, that gives you that urge, that kind of, that it brings back that love of being on the stage. And I mean, The Crucible is an incredible story. There's some incredible scenes in there. And John Proctor especially, he gets that kind of final scene where he's in jail, he's about to be executed, basically. And there's the courtroom scene, and it was a role that I'd never done before in terms of dipping into that anger and that hurt and that frustration at the world and how things were. And I think, like I said, those 10 years growing up as an adult and being in these different situations and going through ups and downs, I could bring that to that role.
Yeah.
And that's what really kicked me off to keep doing it, because I realized that I still have a talent. I still have it there. I lost it. No, I didn't lose the talent. I lost myself for a long time. Yeah. And that was due to my circumstances and my life choices. And like I said earlier, I'd become this broken shell of a person who was so doubtful of who they am. They questioned everything they did. I thought I was fat, unattractive, talentless. I was in this job now because of these people that made me feel like that. That's how I got into that job. And that was this kind of constant thing in my head. And then, yeah, just discovering getting on stage again just reignited it. And what were we going to say? Sorry.
I just said nice.
Oh, cool. Sorry. So yeah, that was what it was. And Brussels was a great opportunity because they filmed so much there. There's a lot of English and American television series there. Okay. And it all came in really quick succession. I auditioned for this one TV role, and I didn't get that role, but they offered me another one, which was one line in this scene with the lead guy. And it was my first time on set as what I considered an actor, as a working actor. I had my own trailer and I had one line. And you know what? I felt more comfortable and at home there than I did in my own office that I'd be doing a job for 13 years. And it just felt natural. It felt like home. And I didn't question myself. I didn't doubt myself. I wasn't nervous. It just felt right. And that's what made me realize you need to go back to doing this. And you're in a position now where you're financially stable with your current job. You can do this. You're old enough to know what you're doing. And you're not too old to think it's unrealistic. I mean, Alan Rickman, for one, he only started professional acting when he was 35. And I'm 35 now, so I'm hoping my Snape role comes along. And that was what really reignited it, realizing that I was good at it and it was something I could do and I could do it successfully. And the beauty of it was I got another role from that role, because the director basically called me up on the morning. He was like, right, we're going to do this scene and I'm happy for you to improvise. And that scared the crap out of me, because I was like, I'm working with a well-known male actor. He was the lead and he wants us to improvise. And we just did it and it worked and it was really natural. And improvisation was always something I wasn't very comfortable in. It was something I wasn't very confident in. I liked the script. I liked to be directed. And that just, again, released this burst of confidence, released this burst of knowing who I was and what I could and couldn't do. And I didn't have toxic people around me anymore telling me, no, you can't do this, or even just mocking you for doing it. I remember we were years and years ago, it was after I did Disneyland, we were watching an advert and there was a guy dressed up as a fluffy character animal. And one of my friends went, oh God, could you ever do anything so degrading? And I just sat there like, I did that for 3 months as a job in Disneyland. And it's that mentality that really, really knocks you down.
Yeah, I can get that.
But then getting back to this, like, this positive aspect. So from working with that director, he recommended me to the casting director of the production company. And I landed another role, which was a bigger role, 2 lines, 4 scenes, working with Ben Miller in this incredible ITV drama. And it was that was a really good role to do. And I worked with an incredible cast. But this time the director was quite tough to work with, because I was kind of a secondary character in the background. I didn't really get the attention that I did from the first one. Right. So that was another learning curve. Like you just learn about it as you go along.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was great, working with a really, really good cast. And then just before I moved back to the UK, The audition, there's a HBO series they were filming in Brussels, and it's a 3-series kids fantasy adventure book turned into a TV show. And they offered me this role of the Doctor in one episode. Oh, this is another weird thing. 3 TV series I've been in now. I'm in episode 3 of every one. Oh. Don't know why. Maybe that's my new lucky number.
Maybe. 3
Maybe. I'll put that on the lottery. And yeah, they offered me this. They offered me this role as the Doctor, but it was after the day I was meant to move back. And I'd set my heart on moving home. I was moving out my apartment, and it would have been waiting in Brussels another 4 months. And I was like, it's a HBO series versus not doing a HBO series. So I went back to them. We had a bit of a negotiation. I ended up agreeing to stay on the part. And it was my first time on set in a purpose-built studio. And they'd built this 2-story Egyptian museum. And I was just like a 10-year-old kid. I've never been so excited in my life. Yeah, there was these incredible, like the cast and the props was just brilliant. And then that one, I only had 1 line, but I just couldn't get it right. And the director asked me to repeat it over and over again. I think we did 7 or 8 takes. And then when I got it, it went, brilliant, there, got it. But that was probably the scariest moment. It was only 1 line. I'd done 2 other shows recently. But it kind of shows that you're always learning, and you're always going to have things thrown at you as an actor. You're always going to have challenges, and you've got to know. I doubted myself after that one. I really doubted myself. I thought, why could I not deliver this 1 line? Why could I not get this 1 line right? But then when I thought about it and thought, I got it. It just took 7 or 8 takes.
Yeah.
And maybe, it's.
I don't think that ever goes away though. I was listening, I can't remember what podcast it was, but I was listening to a podcast not so long ago, and it was a big movie that had like Meryl Streep and a bunch of other really famous actors, and like one actor was like in the room trying to like calm Meryl down because she was freaking out about the way she delivered a line.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how good you are at something.
Yeah.
We're all fallible and question ourselves. It's when people don't question themselves that you need to be concerned about, because they just end up being dicks if they just think they're like amazing all the time.
Yeah, I read a similar article when they were filming Spider-Man Far From Home. Jake Gyllenhaal had a panic attack because he couldn't deliver this scene, and Tom Holland ended up calming him down and getting him to do it. And this is Jake Gyllenhaal, who's this like stalwart of Hollywood actors, and Tom Holland, who's this kind of highly successful actor, but I think he was like 18, 19 at the time.
Yeah.
And it gives you a bit of I think it grounds you. It makes you remember who you are, and as long as you pull it out of the bag in the end, it's fine.
Exactly. We've been on here for a while now, but I'm keen to, I've got another question that I want to ask, just because you've got that. Okay. What's your relationship with your sexuality and acting?
That is a really good question, because I've never, ever, ever been cast as a gay guy. Ever. And I really want to. I would love to bring that to a role. I think it'd be because especially with what I've gone through in terms of my life on the gay scene and how involved with it I was, and through partying. And also, I mean, I when I was at school, the improvement of LGBT equality is generational. It's getting better and better and better. But I went through a tough time as a kid, and it would have been the same as it was for you. We didn't have any gay characters on screen. Yeah. And if we did, they were hiding it from their family. And when they came out, they were thrown out of the family.
Yeah.
And that's not positive reinforcement or positive anything for queer kids growing up. And now we're seeing these incredible things coming out. I mean, I need to get in front of Russell T Davies, because the stuff that he does is brilliant. It's the same. And all those ones that he does. And I think that's a really good question, because I would love to bring my sexuality into a role and use that to define a character or bring something else to the screen or to the stage. And like I said, I've always played the straight male, which I'm fine with. Like,
have you? I guess my question is more around: have you had a concern about the fact that you're gay and what that means to being cast? I mean, clearly, I mean, the roles that you've been cast in, like, for example, the last 3 shows, the Dosia, Before We Die, and Professor T. I mean, are we assuming they're heterosexual roles?
Yeah, I think that is a really good point. I think that's a really good point. And I never really thought about it like that. And I didn't play them straight. I didn't play them gay. I just played them as me.
Just played them, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing. These characters, they don't necessarily have an element of a story. I mean, their sexuality might not bring anything to the role.
No.
It might and it might not. It might influence the way you play it, but it didn't with those roles.
Sure.
And it's actually, that's something I'm going to consider now. I think it's a really good, I've never thought of that. So thank you for that. It's a good way of bringing that and see if it does actually change the choices and the way you deliver or play a line.
Well, I think for me, I've always had this assumption that openly gay actors do not make it big in acting, and that's something that we need to hide. And up until not so long ago, which I have spoken about on the podcast a couple of times, but up until not so long ago, I played every role, or every scene that I played, I played it and not allowing my natural mannerisms or who I am to come through, because I had this perceived idea that I must be perceived as heterosexual in this role, otherwise I'm never going to be cast in anything. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with a guy who's like a branding person, who effectively, not a branding, but like an archetype person, who effectively said, you need to, like, your show reel's good, you're a good actor, but I don't see any of you in it. Like, you're playing these hyper masculine hetero men, and you're not, I don't see any of you. And I took what he said on board. I mean, it was confronting because in my mind, I'm like, casting directors need to see me as straight, because I don't see gay roles on television very often. And that's what I need people to see. But it was stifling me in myself, in my tapes and in my auditions, because I was not letting me shine through. Anyway, I had that conversation with him before I did the 21-day self-tape challenge, and allowed myself to be me in that challenge. Up until a week ago, or a week and a half ago, my last audition was February, and before that it was October. Fast forward to putting a new reel together, allowing my natural mannerisms to come through and being who I am, 5 auditions. Yeah.
That's a really interesting point. And I think it's something a lot of people probably don't consider, because you're trying to consider what that character is as a person and what the casting director wants. But I mean, there's a fine line in bringing yourself to the role and then also completely displaying who this character is, or how you portray him to be. I think that's a really important difference to look at that. But I think when you've got these, I suppose, these characters that don't have that backstory that's clear, you can bring that to it and you can suggest it. And I think that, like you said, that's casting directors don't know what they want until they see it necessarily. So that's something I've learned from today. I'm going to take that away. I really want to do this 21 days casting challenge, actually.
It's so good. So good. All right. Well, I'm going to probably end it off now, because we've been on for nearly just over an hour, and I know my listeners might switch off after a little while. So thank you so much for having a chat with me. I really appreciate it. And
thank you, Danny.
Obviously doing some amazing stuff now, and I wish you all the success.
You too. It's really good seeing you as well. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.